Good morning. I'm with Jasmine, who's the author of The Postpartum Therapist, a humorous and honest approach to the postpartum life. Good morning, Jasmine.
Good morning.
Just a couple questions. What was the inspiration behind your book?
Yeah, so as we were talking a little bit earlier, having a daughter with colic, having a baby with colic was like, okay, that experience alone was what made me want to reach other moms and say, okay, you can have a baby, you can have a plan, you can think that it's gonna go a certain way, but I saw the darkest colors of myself with a baby with colic. I saw the worst characteristics that I have in me when I had a baby with colic. So, and just to give some background, right? Historically, I'm a type A person, so everything has to be planned. I have to know what's going to happen, right? So, when deciding to even get pregnant, right, it was planned. I was like, okay, I want to wait till I'm married, and I want to wait until financially things are okay, and I want to wait till I have stable housing, right? So I had to have this like checklist in my brain, and then I'll be ready, right? And so if you look at the criteria for risk factors, like a lot of those things are on there, like you're more at risk for a postpartum mood disorder if these things are not checked off. And I was like, killing it, check, right? Support system, good, got the best friends in the world, like have great family. So all the boxes were checked. Have my baby, and this is gonna be so great. It's gonna be cuddly and lovey, and I'm gonna be the most patient mom ever, and I'm gonna love this experience. And um pretty immediately, my daughter had colic. So she came home. The hospital experience was terrible, not because the staff or the hospital, but she had low blood sugar. So it was constantly every 2 hours, like nursing, supplementing, pumping, right? And so we didn't sleep. Her labor was super long. So I think we went like 30 or some hours. It's in the book. I can't remember, of no sleep. And then when we're like, we're going to get to sleep, they're like, actually, she has low blood sugar. So you're going to have to pump and da, da, da. So we never like ever caught up on sleep. And here we are 6 years later, and we still haven't caught up on sleep, just so you know. So we came home exhausted. Like we never recovered any sleep because we were so busy around the clock trying to get her blood sugars up because they stayed very concerningly low. And then coming home, she didn't sleep, right? So there were times, most nights from like 5 p.m. to 11 p.m., she would cry and there was no soothing. And so we tried every trick in the book. We asked every person. When you went to your doctor's appointments, I asked my doctor, like, hey, she's really fussy. What can I do? We did the bounce on an exercise ball, do music, put her in her car seat and put her on the dryer or washer, everything. Somebody once said, listen to the song Sunshine by John Denver. Anything somebody said, we tried. We were so desperate to like get her to stop crying. Um, During the day, she would have periods of sleep, but she never slept well. There was not like this great period of time where I was like, you're just like tiptoeing, right? And like your knee cracks or something, that crying. So, at night though is when it would get really bad because, right, she had cried from 5 to 11. She might fall asleep for a couple hours, but in the middle of the night, it would like resurface again. And that was the toughest times for me because, right, my husband works on the power lines. So for me, I'm like, he has a pretty deadly job. He needs his rest. And he was super willing to help. But my mind is like, no, I don't want you to die. Like, I'm already struggling. Like, please don't get harmed. Let's let you get some sleep that you can, because he could hear her. It's not like he couldn't hear the noise. And he would help. And so, but if I didn't have somebody to team off with, there were many nights where I was like, I don't know if I would be safe with my own baby. Because right now I am so full of rage. Like I need to punch something, I need to put her down. And so that's where the inspiration came up. Like, if I can get like this, then there's other moms that are getting like this, and there's other people that get like this. And it's tough, and people aren't going to talk about it because who's going to say like, yeah, I have a newborn baby and I want to punch a wall, right? Like nobody says that. That's not an opening sentence you say as like, how's it going, isn't it great? So
No.
cute. Drywall is great, right? So So that was the inspiration, is really relating to seeing this person of myself that I hadn't ever seen before.
And what do you think about like the newborn stage? Yes, it presents then, but what about the idea of like sometimes this presents a little bit later, or there might have been signs early, but it's like debilitating maybe when they're over a year old. I mean,
Yeah, so that's right where the diagnostic criteria will say that, and they call them perinatal mood and anxiety disorders now, because people can have them before even having their baby. You know, anxiety or depression can happen. But that's also why they say up to age 2 is kind of the diagnostic time frame. And right, what if it happens at like 2.5? And so there's this gray area of, can you still call it postpartum, or can it meet the criteria? And I think that's more where, when I'm meeting with my patients, that I need a diagnosis just for your insurance. But in regards to giving you the specific label, is like, if these things happen specifically after having a child, then I would say probably postpartum, right? um there's people, right, like me, I had anxiety before having kids, but how I can say it's postpartum OCD is I didn't have an OCD diagnosis before kids, and my symptoms were much different after kids, and they were very specific to my kids. So that's where I say, it can happen later, and it does happen later. That's why they say up to age 2. And even if you exceed that, I would say, okay, well, what are your symptoms? What did you notice? And if it seems like it all kind of relates back to that experience of having a baby and the adjustment and whatnot, I kind of go along those lines versus saying, you have like a generalized anxiety disorder. Well, is it generalized if it was kind of related to this very unique, experience? Then no. And it does happen.
gotcha. How do you think, you mentioned being a therapist, how do you think that helping postpartum moms has changed since you've had kids?
Yeah, I like that you asked this, and I'm smiling because I'm hesitant to say it, because I know that there are perinatal mood and anxiety disorder therapists that do not have kids. And actually, some of the we say founding fathers, let's say founding mothers of treating postpartum, like, right, the books that I had to read to become trained, like one woman had had kids and one didn't. And so these are like the founding people of this niche of mental health, right? And so I know one didn't ever have any children, and she's great at what she does. But personally, I would say, gosh, I shouldn't have worked with moms until after I had kids, because there's just a completely different relatability that I feel. Now, does that mean that's the same for everybody? No, because I think there can be good recommendations for somebody that doesn't have kids, right? So when I think about me being in this huge anxiety state of having my baby, and I'm like, oh no, I can't leave her, and no, she can't do this, and no, she can't do that. Well, somebody that's a third party that doesn't have kids looking like, but you actually can. And they're right. Like, you actually can. You don't want to, but your baby's safe. It's a safe environment. Like, they'll be fine. You're the one that feels like you can't, right? So I'm not going to say that you can't be a good therapist unless you have kids, because I think there is a lot of really good non-emotional content that can come from people that don't have that experience. But I've also found that sharing my experience has helped in my relatability with my patients and helped with that connection. They say one of the best indicators of therapy for patients is that therapeutic relationship, right? Like, you can be a really good therapist, but if you don't have that good relationship with your patient, then they're not going to get as much out of therapy that they could. And I feel like that's an element that I have been able to bring to the table with my patients, is that relatability factor. And right, it's a really delicate dance of, right, in therapy, I'm not over disclosing like I can with you right now, right? In therapy, I'm trying to, provide clinical feedback, but not being like, well, my experience, right? And I want to do it so bad, but it's like, no, because that's not the setting for it. So it is a delicate dance of over disclosure, but use of self is another thing you can do in therapy. You can use your experience to share. And so that's always a balance for me, which is why, And I don't know if you're going to ask this, but which is why I started hosting events, is because I don't want to do the delicate dance. I don't want to find the balance. I just want to relate to moms. And so I started doing a couple of, or I've done, 2 events, and I want to do more because I'm like, I just want you guys, here I am, this is who I am, and I want to share it, and I want us to relate, and I want moms to know they're not alone. And if you read my book and it's helpful, great. You don't need to. If you feel like you need therapy, let's get you a referral, right? Like, I want to be that person that can kind of interact with moms in all spectrums, not just therapy.
Gotcha. I think to add, I appreciate you answering that question honestly. And I used to work in healthcare, and I have family members in education. I think that one with the addition of children, it's just a different perspective. It's not that my coworkers who didn't have kids were any worse or better. It's just a different perspective. So
Right.
anyways, so yeah, so I was gonna ask about events, and thanks for sharing about that. And what is there anything else you want to share with Greater Lansing area moms or tell us about?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any upcoming events as of right now where I would share that. Something that I just got approved this morning that I didn't even tell you is that a flyer will be circulating to start doing postpartum adjustment groups. So I don't know if you have anyone that would be interested, but I just got the okay from my employer that I can advertise for that. So those will be hosted on Tuesday mornings at 9. Um, Now, if we have time, I'll kind of explain the difference between a clinical group and a support group, because I feel like that's where people are like, well, why would I go through your business and get insurance approved and like pay for a group when they're support groups, right? So mine is not a support group. Support groups are great and I love them. And I'm glad that there's so many in the area, but they're not clinical. So there you might have a therapist that kind of guides conversation, kind of make sure it's going smoothly and whatnot, but they're not there to give clinical expertise, right? In a clinical group, we're looking at diagnosis, we're looking at your symptoms. I'm able to give you feedback and recommendations, right? And we are building that support network with other moms in there, but it is the focus to get you treatment, get you help, versus, sharing, like we talked about, like relating to each other, sharing common experiences. So I will be sending that out to the masses here soon to get that going, to hopefully reach women that need more of the clinical help versus support. And so, um, as of right now, it's going to be probably insurance based. So they would call in to our admin staff. I'll meet with them to do an intake to see if they're a good fit for the group. Good fit meaning, are you struggling with things postpartum, or, perinatal, just to make sure that's a good fit. I don't want anyone to think to be like, well, I'm not struggling enough, I can't come to your group. No, just to make sure that it's in my realm of expertise, meaning good fit. And then, yeah, it's a closed group. So that means it's an 8-week session. So it's not ongoing. You can't just like drop in, like support groups, you can just drop in. Mine is an 8-week course. And so I don't have the date on when it's starting yet. I got to see how many referrals I get, but yeah, so that is upcoming and that will be available.
Cool. That's awesome. That's a great
Yeah, excited.
it's an opportunity for people. If people would like or interested in taking a look at your book, where can they find it?
So it's just on Amazon. So yep, you'll just do the Postpartum Therapist, and then you can do Jasmine Emerick and then just order it on Amazon. It is available at Michigan Barnwood and Salvage. I don't know how many more copies they have. And then I always give a book away at my event. So if anybody signs up for my event, they get one in their registration bag.
Perfect. All right. Well, I appreciate you talking with us today, or me, not us. And we look forward to upcoming events.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh,